Adventure Interfere Omnibus is probably one of the weirdest Marvel omnibuses I've ever picked up. And I'm going to show you why, because this one is clearly the Horror Omnibus Volume 3 that we never got. You can see here on the back, and here it is. Here is the Omnibus Volume 1, and obviously there's a Volume 2 as well. But this is Volume 3 as far as I'm concerned. And this was a complete run of stories, Adventure Interfere, or as it was called at the first couple of issues, Fear. There's the ISBN number if you're interested in that. Now, this book came out quite a few years ago. I was really quite surprised when I bought it. I thought, very odd. However, it was $150 and I paid £50 for it. So let's just go through it. And the reason it's odd is things like this. You've got here the contents, and the contents include obviously all the titles, lots of reprints. There's a lot of double dipping. So if you're a fan of Kirby and you've got the Monster Bus, you will have a number of the stories here. Also, of course, if you're a fan of Ditko and you've got suspense, then you will have a lot of stories as well. However, there are, of course, lots of other people, Don Heck, etc. Bill Everett comes to mind, and many others that haven't had an omnibus, and some of these stories probably haven't been particularly collected. So you can see all the different titles. Also weird, when I was going through this, I was quite surprised by the dates. And this one here comes to mind, July 1971. The next issue came out July 1971. Is that weird or what? Is that a mistake? It might be a mistake. But February 1972, May 1972. So it was like 3 months. It was a bit of a gap between the issues here, wasn't it? You can see early one as well, 1970. So these were 1970s. And it was a big issue. As you can see, it goes all the way up to 53 odd, 40 odd, 50 pages of stories. And they were all reprints. So there's a lot of Kirby, a lot of Ditko. Again, a bit of double dip in there if you've got those other omnibus editions. However, there are a few stories that are quite interesting. You've got here The Greatest Magician of All. And that's a Bill Everett story, which I think is an absolutely brilliant story. Absolutely love it. But also you've got this one, The Spell of the Sea Witch, another story that, again, is not particularly familiar with. But you've also got other ones, of course, some reprints there. But I think it's just really good. But then it goes into, of course, Fear, Adventure Interfere, where you've got Man-Thing comes into the story, as well as Morbius. And I'll show you those a little bit later. Here's the first issue. Like I said, it was a big issue. I remember picking this up. I remember back in the 1970s, it was in the shops. And yes, what a great first issue there. And after that, there was quite a flood of these sort of titles. There was various, I don't know, Where Monsters Roam, Where Creatures, what's it named? Or where, there was loads of them. Creatures on the Loose, etc. There was a flood of these sort of titles. And they had reprints as well, of course. Sometimes you had occasional ones that weren't new stories, but in most cases there was like Kirby and Ditko reprints. And then, of course, you had these ones, of course, the Don Heck ones. I think there should be a Don Heck omnibus collection. I suspect probably never going to happen, but maybe it will. Of course, you've got this one here, Simon Drood. That's a real good. The Strange Power. I mean, brilliant bit of Kirby there, isn't it? Absolutely. The Youth Serum. And lots of these stories are very similar. There's lots of stories of aliens coming to Earth, Earth being saved by one lone scientist. Also, there's people full of like greed, where they suddenly think they can get immortality or they get infinite wealth. And there's always a twist, a turn at the end of the story. Only I know when the world will end, etc. So you've got this character here giving some detail. And of course, then there's the obvious end. I fought the man who couldn't be killed, and so on. And then you've got the next issue, Fear, issue 2. Again, a bit of a gap between them. X, the Thing That Lived. Obviously, another bit of Kirby there. And there's a lot of Kirby. This one, I remember getting this one. This was probably one of the earliest sort of Atlas stories that I ever got. Orgo, the Unconquered. And I just thought, wow, I just didn't realise these sort of issues existed. So it was just great to pick up. I think it was probably in Dark They Were and Golden Eyed. I'm certain it must have been that shop. Or maybe at the Comic Mart. Probably at London, the Westminster Comic Mart one. I Dared Enter Forbidden World. And again, another of these sort of classic stories where you've got someone goes and does something. And then, of course, it all ends up, doesn't work out. So this was weird. And that looks just so odd, isn't it? Inhuman, the way it's been cropped at the top. Is that by accident? Has it been shifted up or something? I don't know. I haven't got the original issue, so I can't tell. Again, another bit of, and then of course, a bit of Kirby here again. You can tell Kirby straight away. Also, like I say, lots of other artists as well. But unfortunately, they don't and I'd probably stand corrected. Obviously, you've got there the job code, but in terms of who the artist is for this one, you'd have to go to the front to check it out. So it's a bit odd. Journey into Nowhere. Now, a lot of the stories you've got here were, as I mentioned, reprints. Now, we do eventually, and let's go a bit further forward. This one's a classic one. I Am the Gorilla Man. Obviously, there he is. And obviously a bit of Ditko. Again, if you've got Ditko, the suspense series, it's going to be a bit double dipping there, isn't there? So you've got here another one. Let's see, who's the other? And there they are, so Wings of the Butterfly. And you've got Joe Snot. That's a Joe Snot story, which is really good. And I'm just quickly looking, that's what I was looking for. This one. This is one of the weird ones. This is the first of the real sort of new stories. There's not many, but this one, The Greatest Magician of All, but a really, really good bit of Bill Everett. I just absolutely love Bill Everett's works, and I would love to see an omnibus collection of his works. There's lots of great ones. Of course, he did Hulk, Daredevil issue 1 comes to mind, Submariner, of course. Now, of course, there is the Fantagraphics collection coming out with Bill Everett, so that's going to be amazing. I'm certain that's going to be brilliant. That will be good. And on to this one, The Spell of the Sea Witch, which is another new in quotes story, because of course these were back in the 70s, but it was not a reprint at that point. However, we do get into this, The Man-Thing. Now, The Man-Thing has been collected, obviously in other forms as well, though I don't think it's ever been collected in an omnibus collection. I might be wrong on that. Please put in the comments below. Am I wrong on that? Probably. But however, you got the title now becomes Adventure into Fear. I don't know why they changed it. Very odd. Fear was reasonable as a title, but then it became Adventure into Fear. Shouldn't have been Adventures into Fear, because they occasionally had 2 or 3 stories. But anyway, Haunter of the Swamp. I wasn't a big fan of Man-Thing when it came out, but reading these stories again, they're actually filled with some really good fantasy, some very interesting. I love the alien world story. I just thought it was great. Just really very readable issues, very readable stories, I think. And of course, you've got still had a few reprints as well. The Face of Horror there, it says. Again, probably no information about the artist particularly, etc. However, here is Where Worlds Collide, and Val Mariek, might have got his name wrong there, and he's captured, and you can see there obviously this magician and an alien world. I thought, wow, these are actually not bad. From Here to Infinity, not eternity, but from infinity. And again, obviously you've got here the Man-Thing battling away against some creature there, obviously not doing particularly well at that point. Oh, there he is, doing a bit better. And this character turned up, which was quite a surprise as well. I did not realise he turned up in, of course, these Man-Thing stories. And of course, we've got Howard the Duck as well turns up. So on to the next set of stories, because it suddenly just it just stops. There you got there. That's it. Really? I don't know what happened. Why? I suppose he got his own title. I assume so. Man-Thing. Again, I was not following those the characters, so I'm certain Man-Thing issue 1 came out, but still, and maybe appeared in some of the black and white ones as well. But you've got this one, Adventure into Fear, The Man Called Morbius. Actually, that is quite a big chunk of title, isn't it? That is quite really getting a bit over top. Why they just didn't call it Morbius the Living Vampire and just abandon Adventure in Fear would have made absolute sense. But still, what a brilliant bit of Glossy artwork. And again, he's another artist that I just think one of the best. I love, of course, the wonderful Master of Kung Fu, and of course Gil Kane as well. Absolutely brilliant. Love that. And The Uncanny Caretaker. And again, stories that when I first read, I remember reading some of these, and I was not a fan of Morbius. But they're not bad. I thoroughly enjoyed reading them this time. And this one you've got here, The Cat Demon. And in the tradition of Dracula. I love that. Really? This vampire must die. Now, he's not in the traditional of Dracula at all. So I just think that's just odd the way they did it. But I guess they were pushing that vampire bit. The Last Stop. And again, another one of these little short stories. And again, just really brilliant bit of artwork. I love the artwork, in fact. It's just, this one, Craig Russell. I was quite surprised by this. Again, obviously, the inker. The inker obviously changes it in many ways, because Craig Russell's artwork, I would not, when I looked at this first, I did not realise this was Craig Russell in any shape or form. It's just, his style is just so different from this. But still it is. And of course it changes then, and we're on to Frank Robbins, and the stories I think just great, very wild, very intense. That style was just brilliant. The postures and things were just so of his. I loved them. I love this sort of, look at that. I mean, that is just so, as soon as you see it, you know that's Frank Robbins. Just brilliant. And again, the stories are just all the way brilliant, but odd. This guy, there were a lot of eyes in this. Really went eyeball. There were lots of eyes all the way through this. At this point, oh, a gruesome bit there. And that's it. Runs through, and we're on to a very limited selection of extras, which is quite surprising. In fact, the weird thing about this is that they include these lovely covers. Nothing wrong with that, because they are absolutely great. Kirby and Ditko, it says there. Journey into Mystery there. Low Car. But they could have included those as the extras. I think that would have been better. Having those as small and that as the thing. I prefer. And also, they've included these, which I find. I mean, it's nice to accumulate, have the entire set, I guess. But it's just odd. And of course, you've got the covers there. And, oh, there's the Man-Thing complete collection, I should say. And also the Morbius, the Living Vampire Omnibus. I did have that volume. However, I haven't got it now. So it's really good to have all of these stories in here. So this one, Adventure into Fear, as mentioned, a real odd one because it is horror volume 3 as far as I'm concerned. And the reason being, again, you got here, this one got this collection. Can you think of any other characters that really should be collected into a horror omnibus? Other than, for me, all the ones like the Don Heck stories that were in Tales of Suspense, the probably Tales to Astonish, etc. Strange Tales comes to mind, and all those ones. Lots of those stories, Don Heck ones as well as Paul Reinman, those sort of people, have not been collected in the way that I think they should. However, what we have got, of course, is this classic Adventure into Fear. But there's also, of course, this series. And in many ways, whoops, smashing the issue again. I keep bashing this one. Tower of Shadows. This is a brilliant. Lost Marvels. In many ways, it's sort of series you could imagine they could have done with this. But this one is worth checking out. And I hope that they continue to bring out more of these Lost Marvels with sort of runs of series. And there were lots of them, like Worlds Unknown. And that's another one I'm surprised they've never brought out as an omnibus. Would be really nice. But this one, still, this is the one that obviously discussing. I think this is definitely a great one. But not if you've, of course, got lots of the stories already in the omnibuses. You might turn around and think, you know what, there's only a few stories that are sort of like, that really make it worthwhile. And it's a lot. Obviously at £50, that's what I paid for my copy to get this one. Well, did you get this one? Because as I mentioned, this came out a few years ago. I was really quite shocked. I thought this was a fairly recent one, but apparently it's not. So when I looked, it said 2020. I thought, wow, 2020. But I'm glad I got it still. And it's great, actually, because I've sort of just re-looked at these characters like Man-Thing and Morbius and had a bit more of appreciation of the characters than I had originally. So, which is always a good thing when you pick up something like this. So, did you buy it? Will you be buying it? Have you got it? Thought about it? Maybe you're not really interested in these sort of ones. Please let me know in the comments below. Always great to know.